and Nigel Baxters are brothers and entrepreneurs. They founded what became one of the country's largest road haulage firms, RH Freight, in Lenton 40 years ago. Today, they're on opposite sides of the spectrum as the debate heats up about Britain's EU membership. And I think they're about to have a row.
But I think they are. Well, I'm going to make sure that they do, because Nigel today is spearheading a campaign for East Midlands businesses to vote to leave the EU in the forthcoming referendum. And Ian is pro-Europe. He describes his brother as a quitter. So, Nigel, first of all, why are you so adamant that Britain should vote no?
Oh, good morning. Well, there are a number of reasons. Most of them outlined already by others. One is we're paying into this club £350 million a week. I mean, that's enough for us to buy and build a new hospital every week. We've lost control of our sovereignty. We've passed too much power to the European Union, to faceless bureaucrats, and it's time now for us to take control.
OK. Ian? You disagree. So let's see how two brothers get on when they have such polar opinions. What do you make of that, Ian?
Well, look, we know that the European Union isn't perfect, but what it is a free market area of 500 million people. It's hugely important for our trade. It's 45% of our trade from the UK to the European Union. And what Vote Leave means is putting in customs clearance back into that trade. So that's going to put massive obstacles in the way of doing business with the European Union. We could easily lose the £350 million a day that it currently costs to be in the EU if we just lost 5% of our trade. It's £200 billion, our total trade. So the fact is, the main benefits are to do with trade. But also, I think we need to have a wider view than being, just the UK on its own. We need to be collaborators, cooperators, people who work with our neighbours over climate change, over environmental challenges, and yes, over the migration crisis. Nigel wants to step away from that, and I want to continue to engage with the problems that European countries face.
What do you make of that? It's this stuff you've heard before, isn't it, you know?
One or two times.
I imagine dinner parties at your house can get a bit heated if you go into Europe.
I think we could easily get into a fight, yes. No, I mean, what is Ian saying there? First of all, climate change. I mean, that's got no relevance, I don't think, to us being part of the EU. It's a global issue. We're engaged in it globally. We'll remain involved in it globally. He's right. It is a big trading area. It's a diminishing trading area, and we've got up-and-coming markets, despite the turmoil in China and so on and so forth at the moment, and great trade opportunities. Customs clearance, I remember the days of customs clearance back in the transport industry, and of course, back in the day before technology was really advanced, then these things were much more difficult. I don't accept today that customs clearance would be anything like the issue that we had before, so putting that as an argument...
So is he exaggerating it then? Is that what you're doing, Ian?
No, absolutely not. The fact is, we know what it's like, because if we trade with Switzerland, if we trade with Norway, we have those customs clearance obstacles today. It's far easier to deal with the rest of Europe than it is with those countries. So definitely costs, definitely delays, definitely obstacles to doing trade. And Nigel wants to bring back sovereignty. Great idea. Except that, what does that really look like in practice? Are we really going to repeal the regulations that people complain about? I doubt that very much. Some people are concerned about, things like human rights. People in Britain concerned about human rights. We invented them. We put this European Convention on Human Rights into place in the first place. So, I think there's a lot of confusion about the EU. The EU's done a huge amount of good. It's stabilised our neighbours in Eastern Europe, for example. It has created peace within the European continent for the last 70 years,
Nigel's shaking his head, though, at some of what you're saying, to be honest, Ian.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm not surprised. But the thing is, he's wrong. He's got a narrow view of Britain's future. I'm a collaborator, somebody who wants to take on our problems head on with our partners, not step away and become a little Englander on its own. Incidentally, losing Scotland probably in the meantime.
Yeah, it's difficult to get a word in, isn't it? Normal story. Yes, he can speak. There's no question about that. One of the other big issues I think that we need to consider in all of what Ian's saying there is is that this is not a vote for the status quo. We have passed huge amount of our powers over to the EU, and we have little influence, I feel, today within the EU. Mr Cameron, who's a Prime Minister I admire very much, where he has opposed a motion in the EU Council, on every occasion he has been defeated. That's 40 times. That's the most of all our Prime Ministers. But a vote to stay will be a vote and a green light to go headlong into further integration, further loss of sovereignty, further loss of power away from our national governments, and I think that's unacceptable, frankly.
Nigel Baxter, Ian Baxter, thank you. It's been good to hear.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.